feel like we're at a time when, the art. It's often the artists, the poets, those, many in this room, I'm sure, the most sensitive among us, kind of perceive the changes, the collective changes we're engaged in before, often before many others do. And I know my own journey, I trusted the nature of creation more than the form. And to my surprise, as this film kind of hints at, it took me out of the form itself. Ramakrishna says when you take a boat across the river, once you get to the other side, you don't drag it over the land with you. And I felt like art in that form took me as far as I can go. And I needed to let go of the form, sensing something greater and giving myself to that. But I think, that was 1979. And since then, Marilyn and I have toured the country quite a bit with Parabola magazine, who was the first distributor of the film, and now Sentient Publications. And what I find is that this far along, after that initial leap into the void, I've watched so many people coming to that same kind of transformational moment in their own unique way. I mean, we are at a place on our planet where the way we are living is no longer sustainable. And so we're all going to have to kind of re-establish an identity that is different from that which we are so comfortable with. And that can often look like sheer terror. I mean, it's the metaphoric death, which I think, as Yogananda says, to set out on any holy purpose, which our lives are, and to die along the way is to succeed. And I think, suffering comes in avoiding that death, trying to keep something alive that there's just no more energy there, there's no more possibility for it there. And it doesn't have to look like my journey. I think my journey was my journey. But I think we can be very successful people, and yet that which we know as reality no longer holds, and we can't feel very good about our lives. Things are just coming undone, and if even not in a literal sense, we just don't feel the same about our creation as we did. And I think this is where we all come together in this collective shift that we are in, is that we can each do it in our own unique way. And even at our table, I heard how that shift is stirring for people, and I'm sure it came up on many other tables, that place of surrender. But what you find is that the thing we're most afraid of, which is often perceived as death or our demise or the demise of our identity or ego, in that, if we can give ourselves to the process, and I don't think we have to go looking for that thing. I think it is so present and so in our lives. The hero's journey is to be a willing participant. But if we can give ourselves to that and fully traverse the territory, what you find there is renewal. And here's where the element of grace comes in. In that renewal, if we can do what is in our life, what comes up just as it is, with everything we have going for us, everything that is working and is not working, what comes through, if we fully complete that journey, as difficult as it may feel, is a kind of promise comes through. And here's where I love the name of your organization, The Inside Edge, because the inside edge of inside all of us, we can only come up to that edge with our will, intelligence, and our good intentions, and then we need a kind of quantum leap. And I think that's the place that scares the hell out of most of us. We can't let go there. We can't, because there we are no longer in control. But with that leap comes the element of grace. It is the element of grace. And I think the ongoing gift of that moment and the service to our world is that once we have arrived there, we can always arrive there. And in the cyclical nature of life, we come up against our metaphoric deaths over and over again. I mean, a couple people at our tables mentioned that they have to experience it every day. And I think that is true. And I think what you become adept at is making that surrender. And in the place where most of us run for cover, or we try to buffer it, if we only have a little bit more money, if we only have the perfect family, if we only have the safety of this net that we think we're creating for ourselves, we will survive our difficulty. And what you find is that that is not enough. But if we can walk into that metaphoric death over and over again and let the grace of that surrender wash over us, that is eternity. You know, the whole Christian notion of eternal life, to die and be reborn, there's where it all happens, whatever your religious persuasion. And there's no greater gift. To avoid that is to continually live in fear. And so the only freedom that any of us can experience, because no one is going to beat dust. Here we are all headed. You know, how are you going to become one with the dust of our ideas of ourselves? Because in that is ultimate freedom. And, you know, as I said in the film, I never would have chosen such a strange and lonely journey, but it has proven to be the most important thing I've ever done with my life. It has been, you know, I think many of us do things to be individuals. You know, we have certain hairdos or certain clothes, or we get pierced or tattooed or whatever we do to feel like we're unique. But true individuality has no reference point, and we experience that no reference point in that metaphoric death of our identity. But in that, if we can hold that unknowing, which is a very alchemical term, by the way, you know, a very sort of alchemical notion of that unknowing, if we could hold it with a kind of trust instead of fear, instead of control, what comes through is a new identity. What we become is exactly who we are, and very, very few of us have the luxury of living exactly who we are without any buffer, without any sort of prop. You know, to be able to go into a moment and simply be who we are and actually inspire others, or actually touch the pain and help someone who else is suffering. And I think what comes out of that individual metaphoric death, transformation, surrender is the ability to do that. And our world is going through it. You know, I mean, we're not going to be able to continue doing what we have been doing. Things are shifting. And so what we can bring to our world is a joy and freedom in the face of what others perceive as death. And that's what I feel most of our work right now is to have someone come at you with all of their limitations, so completely believing in them, so, you know, with such suffering, and to be able to hold that and to transform it. And we can't do that if we haven't done it ourselves first. And I think that is both the gift and the challenge of this time. You know, and if you look at things like a lot of what's gone on with the current administration and things like that, in a lot of ways it's a last-ditch effort, fear-based, to keep something that is dying alive a little longer. You know, and it's the only alternative to the courage it takes to surrender is fear, and to kill rather than to feel like I'm going to be the one to die, you know, to go through that. I don't want to go through that. None of us do. But I think that is where we are at right now.